Hey everyone, welcome back to another comparison video here on the channel. Today we have another midsize truck comparison between the 2025 Nissan Frontier SL and the 2025 Chevy Colorado Z71 Convenience Package 3, finished in the new Snowdrift metallic exterior. So I hope you like blue because, well, this is what we have available currently for this comparison. I do have dedicated content on both of these two trucks here on the channel, so make sure you guys check those videos out if you guys are curious. But just like that of my other midsize truck comparisons, we're gonna simply do a quick walkthrough on each of these two particular trucks, see some of the similarities, some of the differences. This is a long bed configuration Frontier, which was made available as an additional charge for 2025. That's actually not available at all on any of the GM midsize trucks currently. Of course, as we know, the Frontier soldiers on with the naturally aspirated V6 engine, where again, not available at all on any of the, I guess most of the other midsize trucks, if not all of them. And we're gonna just, do a walkthrough in terms of what these trucks have to offer in their, mostly fully loaded trim levels as seen in this video. Take a look at pricing, any feature differences, similarities, things like that. Take a look at the two bed configurations, the trailering specifications on these two, and also take each one for a very quick drive and tell you my driving impressions, because there's actually gonna be some stark differences in not only my opinions of how each of these two trucks drive, but just due to those powertrains that is going to be found underneath the hood. So make sure you guys buckle up, stay tuned. I want to give a huge thanks to Nissan for providing the Frontier for my last week of driving, as well as Green Chevrolet here in East Moline, Illinois for providing the Chevy Colorado. But without further ado, let's not waste your time and get right into it. So first I want to quickly go over the window sticker as well as the exact configuration of each of these two trucks so you know exactly how they're equipped. So on my left I have a 2025 Nissan Frontier SL four-wheel drive with the long bed or the long wheelbase configuration. This is the fully loaded trim level for the Frontier in terms of the luxurious comfort and convenience features. This one does have the premium paint as well as the carpeted floor mats on it, which brings the total MSRP including destination to $47,750. Now of course on my right I have a 2025 Chevy Colorado Z71 Convenience Package 3 technology. It has the 20-inch wheels, the Snowdrift is a premium paint, and one or two additional charges for a total MSRP on this truck of $50,485 including destination. So there's just under a $3,000 price differential between each of these two trucks as equipped, and I would argue they're actually fairly comparable in each manufacturer's lineup in terms of what they have to offer, given this is, pretty much fully loaded. Does offer some additional off-road hardware, which we'll be touching on a little bit here later in this video. But both these two trucks have a 2-speed transfer case, four-wheel drive. This one just has a little bit more mechanical, as well as, things like the all-terrain tires, which might make it ever so slightly more capable of this one. But of course, you can get a Pro 4X Frontier if you're looking for that additional mechanical hardware for off-road capability, the all-terrain tires, things like that, for not too dissimilar of an MSRP to this exact truck. So do keep that in mind while watching this, but overall I don't think they're too dissimilar in terms of how they compete in the market, outside of this one of course having the long bed configuration, which is an additional $500 from Nissan. So before we get into the exteriors of each of these two trucks, I just want to give a huge shout out to the Ranger over there for the moral support and keeping an eye on us. Not sure if that truck's for sale or what's going on with it over there, but kind of funny that it's overlooking in the background, given I have done a Colorado versus Ranger video. Actually, the Ranger is finished in a very similar blue to this one. Anyways, take a look at the exterior of each of these two trucks. You're going to find some similarities and differences in terms of some of their features and options here at the front end. So both trucks are going to have LED headlights, both low and high beam. This is going to be a projector design over here on the Colorado with your LED daytime running lights and incandescent turn signals. It does have the projector fog lights down below, just like that of the Frontier. But in terms of the LED headlight on the Frontier, it's going to be a reflector design, both low and high beam. You do, however, have the same LED daytime running lights and LED turn signals, so a little bit of an upgrade versus that of the Chevy Colorado. But you're going to have, some different styling that each manufacturer has gone with. So gloss black grille, black bow tie, Z71 badging with the red recovery hooks down below, and a little bit of brighter silver plastic trim. Where over here on the Frontier, it's going to be pretty much the body color against the medium gray metallic grille with the brighter white Nissan branding in the center. You do still have black recovery points down below, so both trucks will have front recovery hooks for if you get stuck and need a little bit of additional off-road recovery points, they will have that. When you bend down just a little bit further, you can see the Colorado actually has a little bit more aggressive of a front air dam for better aerodynamics and fuel efficiency versus that of the Frontier, where it still has that, but I would just say it's a little bit less aggressive or intrusive and sticking down. Now, one of the big attributes or differences in the driver assistance technology is, yes, both trucks might have adaptive cruise control and such, but the Frontier uses a radar sensor here mounted in the lower front fascia versus the camera-only based system on the Chevy Colorado, which of course is located behind the rear view camera mirror up there on the windshield. So that relies on that camera for most, or I should say all of the driver assistance technologies, where you will have a radar sensor for the adaptive cruise on the Frontier, as well as the camera behind the mirror itself. Both trucks do have the 360 camera system, so you have it right there on the Chevy Colorado and over here on the Nissan. Now, unfortunately, despite the hardware on the interior being, an HD high resolution, the camera system on the Frontier is still the lower resolution from that of, the previous generation truck, where it is nice, crisp HD resolution with the Chevy Colorados. Now, moving down the side of the two trucks, of course, as we know, the GM trucks only come in a short bed configuration, so roughly 5-foot bed length. Where over here on the Frontier, this one does have the optional 6-foot bed, or just over 6-foot bed, but there is going to be a standard short bed right around that 5-foot length as well. In terms of the wheel and tire setup, the Colorado does have the optional black painted 20-inch with the all-terrain tires that do come standard on Z71, where over here on the Frontier, it's going to be a 17-inch alloy wheel with a machine gunmetal finish. So on the Frontier, you're going to find a 265, 65, 17-inch Michelin Primacy LTX all-season tire. And then over here on the Colorado, again, option wheel normally does come with 18-inch on this trim level. It's going to be a 255, 55, 20-inch Bridgestone Dueler AT all-terrain tire. So a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more off-road capability, but definitely not the most capable or most aggressive tire in terms of what the GM trucks offer. That's going to be roughly a 32-inch diameter tire. I believe this is probably somewhere around a 31 to 31 and a half, if I had to guess, similar to that of the Colorado LT and the 17-inch that comes on that particular trim. But nonetheless, going down the sides of the trucks, we have body color mirror caps, no LED turn signal integration over here on the Nissan. We do have those cameras for the 360 around view monitor. Mirrors themselves are going to be heated with blind spot detection, standard proximity entry on both of the two front doors. And then taking a look at the cab and the side profile once again, tinted windows out back, pretty standard issue stuff over here. No integrated bedside steps or anything to note on the back of that vehicle. And then coming over here to the Colorado, we do have the gloss black mirror caps in the way that this one is equipped with the cameras on the bottoms. Once again, mirrors are going to be heated, blind spot detection, very similar equipment there. Nice Colorado branding on the upper sides of the two front doors. Both front doors will have the standard proximity entry, so equivalent equipment in that regard. And then backing up here on the Colorado, there's going to be a look at the Z71 decal on the bedside there. Again, the gloss black wheels and the 20-inch in design. And both these two trucks, believe it or not, the way they're equipped, also have the standard sunroof. However, that is an optional upcharge on the Colorado, where that comes standard on the SL Frontier, but very similar in that regard. So no real differences, I guess, in equipment and stuff on the exterior outside of the tire, wheel and tire package, because both of them have proximity entry, heated mirrors, the 360 cameras, and things like that. So first, stepping onto the interior of the Nissan Frontier, well, this is going to be quite different of an environment versus that of the Chevy Colorado. Now, of course, both trucks are going to have power windows, mirrors, and locks. Both trucks I've seen here have the premium audio systems from each respective manufacturers. Heated front seats, heated steering wheel. However, the Nissan does not have ventilated front seats. And speaking of the two front seats, although they're both going to be powered, you have a 6-way power adjustment here on the driver's side with 2-way lumbar and a 4-way power seat over there on the passenger side. The seats themselves on the Frontier aren't particularly that comfortable, and I'm not the only one who has sat in this truck who has actually said that. So I guess for me, you know, I'm 5'9". They're going to be a nice leather material, but the shape of the seat, the adjustability, and the overall, I guess, interior layout just don't lend itself to be overly comfortable. Now, I do have spinal fusion, so that has somewhat to do with a little bit of my discomfort issues, but I just think the adjustability and the shape of the seats aren't particularly that nice. Now, moving on to some of the other attributes, I like the steering wheel. It has a lot of buttons on it that are easy to use for the 7-inch digital display. We have a lot of physical switch here on the left side and the center console for the HVAC, the heated seats. The 2-speed transfer case is going to be found on the right side also, and we also will find a brand new 12.3-inch infotainment system with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay here in this particular vehicle. So I really do like the screen orientation, how it's integrated into the dashboard, and I like a lot of the physical switch here and buttons inside the Frontier. And once we hop over in the Chevy Colorado, I think that'll be a big differentiating factor, is just how simplified the interior and overall dash layout is on that truck versus this one, which is a little bit more traditional, has all of the buttons, switches, and knobs for each individual feature rather than being implemented all onto the infotainment touchscreen. Now moving on to the back seat of the Frontier, well, you can see immediately I kind of contacted my head a little bit on the upper roof section, ingress into the vehicle, and behind my seating position, I would say I have about 2 inches of legroom, maybe a little bit of additional footroom down below, and the seats themselves, the leather material is pretty soft. It's actually nicely padded. It's just very upright and vertical in its orientation. Soft touch materials from the front carry through to the back. We have a USB-A and USB-C charge port, 120 volt, 400 watt power outlet. Unfortunately, no AC vents back here, but we do have a center armrest, 2 cup holders, 1 mat pocket, and overhead LED lighting. Headroom, again, about 1.5 to 2 inches of up there. And you just have a very staged seating effect, which means you sit up a little bit higher, overlooking the front occupants or the front seats themselves. The seats do fold up 60-40 split via these levers. Click into place. It's a little bit difficult. You have to kind of slam it into place. Subwoofers on this side for the premium audio, but you do have under-seat storage on the passenger side, or all of it will be under-seat storage if you don't have the premium audio. And putting the seat back down, it does fold down this direction as well, 60-40 for your child seat tethers behind there, and then your roadside toolkit and roadside jack is also on the passenger side, with, of course, the manual sliding rear window up there. So really not a bad place to be. I like the seating materials and the comfort, but I wish it wasn't quite as upright or vertical in its actual orientation. Now moving immediately here into the Chevy Colorado, there's a number of items I like immediately better about the comfort and just the overall design language here on this truck. So number one, ingress feels a little bit higher off the ground, which might be a positive or negative depending on who you are and what you prefer. But number two, the seats themselves are much more comfortable in their actual shape. The material is very similar in its softness, but they just feel a little bit wider. You don't feel like you're sitting on top of the edges of the bolsters like you are over there in that truck. The seat adjustments in terms of the power seats have more adjustment. You can tilt the actual seat bottom up and down, as well as raise the seat up and down, where you unfortunately can't do all of that over there in the Frontier. You have 2-person memory seats the way this one's equipped. Trailer brake controller here on the left side. And then looking over here, I guess, across the dash and the center console, I don't feel like I have as much knee room, particularly here on the center console, because it is higher up off the floor of the truck. So it's just a little bit more open in the Frontier, but all things considered, I think it's just a more comfortable, enjoyable experience. You do have larger gauge cluster, fully digital 11-inch in display, and then just over an 11-inch infotainment system, which is a little bit smaller than that of the Frontier. It still does have wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, but a lot of the physical buttons and knobs that might be on the left side of the steering wheel in that truck is digital in display over here, such as your headlight controls. Some of the driver assistance technology controls are implemented into the infotainment system. But you do have heated and ventilated front seats in this one, where you only have the heat over there. Of course, you have the trailering attributes. The 2-speed transfer case is here in the center console next to the shift knob. And I guess the impression I get is it feels like a more modern interior that, kind of goes with what people are wanting nowadays inside their vehicles versus the Frontier, which is a little bit more old school. I like certain attributes about the old school feel, but I also like a few attributes about this truck. So we kind of need to mash them together, bring the two design languages together, and I think ultimately we'd have a perfect combination. But as a whole, I think the interior of this truck is maybe marginally better in some regards, marginally worse in others, but certainly one thing that I immediately can tell is seat comfort is much better than that of the Frontier. Now moving into the back seat of the Chevy Colorado, well, immediately ingress easier. My head just barely brushed versus kind of made a little bit more contact in that truck. The seats themselves are at a better angle. They're not so vertically upright. They're just a little bit more at an angle, and the seat bottom is more squishy and more comfortable. So yeah, immediately just more comfortable here in the back of the Colorado. You still have a stage seating effect, so you sit up higher than that of the front. Legroom actually pretty similar, footroom very similar. Materials are a little bit worse in the back, so you only have a little bit of a padded armrest, no padded other section on the door panel. You have two cup holders on top of the center console, AC vents, two USB-C and USB-A charge ports, and a 120 volt outlet down below. Still have the center armrest with two more cup holders, so if you like your cup holders, this truck actually has more than that one. Headroom is very similar. I would say I have about 2 inches of headroom, maybe marginally more, but the center of the headliner bows down for the power sunroof in this truck where it does not over there. So it does feel maybe a little bit more claustrophobic in the vertical orientation versus the Frontier over there. But the seats themselves do still fold up 60-40 split at the bottom via the levers. Actually, the larger side's on the driver's side where it's the opposite on the Frontier. Storage space is a little bit limited, but you do have a little bit underneath the floor as well as your roadside tool jack and kit. And then you cannot fold down the second row seats in this manner because your child seat anchor tethers are actually up top just behind the headrest, but the headrests themselves do fold down for better visibility out the back, and you still do have the manual sliding rear window with the integrated rear defroster function. So in terms of rear seat space and amenities, this truck's just a little bit better, I have to say. Outside of the underseat storage being marginally worse, headroom being a little bit worse depending on what dimension and where you measure from, I think the back seat of the Colorado is just more comfortable in general, has more amenities with the AC vents, and yeah, I like the seat back angle just a little bit more. So moving on to the back of the vehicle, starting out here at the mirror caps, going all the way back, you can see there is going to be a height differential between each of these two. The Z71 likely has a slightly larger wheel and tire package, maybe a little bit of additional suspension, but you can really tell here at the beds and just the entire belt line. This truck's a little bit lower, this truck's just a little bit higher. Now, coming out back before talking about the beds, we have full LED lighting over here on the Nissan, so brake lights, running lights, turn signals, reverse lights. Where we only have LED running lights on the Colorado in this accent portion, the rest of it is going to be incandescent in nature. Not exactly sure why GM's done that, but some people might find that as a positive for snow melting, ice, wintry conditions, stuff like that. Taking a look at the bumpers, one of the aspects I love about all trucks from GM currently is going to be the integrated side step. This is on the midsize, the full size, the heavy duties. I just think that's a very positive thing. You can get an accessory push down step on the Frontier. This one's not equipped with it, but you can get that. Similar in function, I think this one's integrated just a little bit better. You can see we have a black bumper over here, body color and black plastic on this side. Both trucks do feature ultrasonic rear parking sensors. Chevrolet stamped in the tailgate. We have Frontier stamped in the tailgate. The badging to signify this one's an SL four-wheel drive. Just the Colorado and some of the other stuff over here on that truck. But moving into the actual beds themselves, you're gonna find soft, damped tailgates on each of these two. Now, when it comes to a race, that one's definitely way quicker. I like that operation better. But one of the cool things, I guess, about a lot of the Colorado trucks is gonna be the StowFlex integrated storage. So opening these tabs, you're gonna find the StowFlex storage system, which does have a rubber gasket to keep water out for the most part. I know there have been some moisture problems in these, at least in the early build ones, but cool little design feature. You can get accessories in there. It does have drain plug, things like that, but I don't think the operations of it is super smooth. We have a ruler on the edge of the tailgate of the Colorado. Nothing over here except the integrated cup holders. Bed liner standard on the SL. Bed liner is optional, but this truck is equipped with it on the Colorado. You have the utility tie-down Also standard on the Nissan, which has these aluminum rails, gives you additional points of tie down. You can buy extra clamps, I'm sure. You have LED bed lighting in here. You have the 120 volt power on the passenger side. And of course, this one has the 6-foot bed as equipped. 5 and 6-foot beds available across the entire trim lineup on the Nissan, where we only have the 5-foot beds over here on every single Colorado and GMC Canyon. You have fixed in place tie down points and 2 in each corner. You can get a utility bed group in this truck. So you can get, basically the exact same bed rail system in this one for an additional charge. You have the standard 120 volt outlet also on the passenger side. Both of them are rated at 400 watts, so equivalent power outlet setups in each of these two. Manual sliding rear window, third brake light. Really not a ton of difference, but certainly going to be some additional features, I would say, over here with the Frontier in terms of just a larger optional bed available, the tie down points, and the LED bed lighting as standard, where you can get the tie down points, the utility group, and LED lighting, but all of that is going to be extra, including just paying for the spray and liner. So in terms of value proposition, certainly goes to the Frontier, but ultimately there's a little bit more equipment you can get for additional money on the Colorado if you want to buy it and spend up for it. But I think the Stowflex, it kind of is what it is, but tailgates, pretty easy to lift, actually way easier to lift on the Frontier. Now in terms of trailering on each of these two, both of them come standard with the trailering hitch receivers. As you can see down there, they actually made the advanced trailering package standard on every single Z71 for 2025. So great to see that. 4 and 7 pin connections on each of these two. And as I mentioned, you have 7,700 pound trailering capacity as equipped on this Z71. And because this is a long bed configuration Frontier, it's not the heaviest towing spec. It is about 6,800 pounds of towing capacity here, the way that this one is configured with the trailering package. So there's about a 900 pound towing differential between each of these two trucks, which at the end of the day, I'm not sure how many people are going to be max towing with their midsize truck, but that is a sizable portion. It is worth noting you have an integrated trailer brake controller on the Chevy Colorado with the standard advanced trailering package on Z71, where this truck unfortunately does not come standard with a trailer brake controller. It does have a tow haul mode. Actually, both the trucks do drive mode selection, but I think that is a little bit of a bummer given it has the trailering, it has the harness connections, just no integrated trailer brake controller, where a lot of that technology is found over here on the GM. So under the hood, you're gonna find a big differentiating factor between each of these two trucks. Starting over here with the 2025 Frontier, you're gonna find a 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine paired to a 9-speed torque converted automatic, putting out 310 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque. Now, those numbers are very similar to the last generation Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon, which had a 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6. However, gone is that engine, and every Colorado for 2025 will come with the 2.7 liter Turbo Max turbocharged 4-cylinder, which produces 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed automatic transmission. So you can see exact same horsepower, but you have 149 pound-feet more torque over here out of this Turbo 4. And I will say this is a little bit of a louder powertrain versus this one at idle, but another exact similarity between each of these two powertrains is the fuel economy rating. 17 mpg city, 21 out on the highway, 19 mpg combined. Both of these, as equipped, as seen in this video, are rated at that number. So interesting to see you have, two totally different powertrains rated with the exact same fuel economy. Both of them can run on 87 octane. GM claims this vehicle is tuned specifically to run on 87, not premium, so you don't have to put premium in this turbocharged engine, as the same over here in this naturally aspirated V6. So that is basically going to be a quick look at each of these two trucks in a little bit more details, my first initial impressions. Setting out first here in the 2025 Colorado Z71. Now, of course, I have been driving the Frontier for the last few days, so I want to drive this truck first, give you guys my impressions on how they kind of differ, then go back to the Frontier, give you some of the attributes I like about that truck, and ultimately conclude and wrap up this video. Now, immediately setting out here in the Colorado. Now, I do have quite a bit of time behind the wheel of this truck in general over this, couple generation, 2 years since it's been out. But immediately you can hear the 2.7 liter turbo underneath the hood. Even at, low throttle applications, it's just a little bit of a noisier interior, or just engine in general, excuse me. Now, what I like about this truck is the seats. These seats are far superior and more comfortable to that of the Frontiers. And getting into the throttle a little bit. Oh yeah, this thing's got a lot of torque down low, that's for sure. And that differs greatly from that of that naturally aspirated V6. Now, we'll drive both these trucks on the exact same loop, so we get a fair idea of how they exactly stack up and everything like that. But going over this rougher section of road, ride quality is pretty darn good in this truck. No big complaints as far as that goes. Looks like we will make the light here. And handling's pretty good, even with these all-terrain tires. Interior, pretty darn quiet outside of the engine noise you do hear on that. One thing I've always mentioned about the Colorado, the side mirrors to me are a little bit on the smaller side. I like a lot of the other trucks, including the Ranger and even the Frontiers has slightly larger side mirrors. So in terms of visibility, I like that truck, or those aspects better. But in terms of forward visibility, I have the seat all the way in its lowest position. And I feel like the dash height is lower in this Colorado. I can actually see the majority of the hood. It does have a little bit more of an aggressive design, but I can see over the hood just a little bit better. And really the only downfall in terms of visibility, I think, is the belt line. The side mirrors are a little bit smaller, and even rearward visibility might be marginally better given the fact that you can fold down the two rear headrests. They are not folded down currently at the moment, but I think that should improve rearward visibility a decent amount in this truck. But just rolling into the throttle a little bit, yeah, it is unfortunate how loud the 2.7 is, not only in this vehicle, but the 2.5 also in the Traverse or some of the other mid-size three-row GM SUVs. Similar architecture in terms of powertrain. They're just a little bit on the noisier, chattier side of things, but torque delivery is very, very good. And I think in terms of how this truck is driving from that of the Frontier, it feels maybe a little bit more rigid. Obviously, it does have the shorter wheelbase and the shorter configuration, given, you know, they don't make this truck in a long bed. But we'll go ahead and give it one more acceleration here. Wheel spin. Oh yeah, there's no doubt that this truck's quicker all around, either 0 to 60, you know, low throttle applications with the turbocharger. It's just, it feels like a peppier, more enthusiastic truck that wants to get up and actually move. Versus that of the V6, which the V6 is smooth, but at the same time just doesn't have the amount of torque that this truck does on tap. Activating cruise control here, press of the button, press down on this switch here, sets it at your current traveling speed. This truck does have the basic lane keeping assist, no hands-free, you know, lane centering technology. Like I said, it uses mostly the cameras behind the rear dimming mirror for all of the safety systems. I like the large screens. They're bright, colorful, integrated nicely overall into the dashboard. Both trucks do that, I think, fairly decently. Of course, we do have the Bose premium audio system, which we'll go ahead and test that out. I think the Fender audio system with the dedicated subwoofer in the Frontier is better than this Bose premium audio system without a dedicated subwoofer. So if you're into audio, I think this system's okay. It's decent. Certainly not near the top in terms of what premium systems are offered in the midsize truck space. But I guess the only gripe I'm having behind the wheel of this, in terms of comfort, my knee is resting dead on the center console in this textured padded material. Don't like that material here on the interior, but there's just not as much space here on the inside in terms of, I guess, the center console area. The door space is fine. Seat spacing and seat size is fine. It's just that area for my knee. Don't like that. Love the ventilated seats, which are on its lowest setting right now. Wish the Frontier and other midsize trucks offered that. The Tacoma does, the Colorado obviously does, but unfortunately the Frontier and the Ranger do not. But yeah, I think this just feels like a more modern interior as a whole. I don't really have too much more else to say about that. More minimalistic, I think, in its design language. Not quite as many physical buttons, although there is a decent amount here in the center console area. We're getting up to about 2,800 RPM just accelerating here. And I think ultimately that's where I'm going to find the positives, is the amount of torque on tap in the Colorado versus the V6. It's just easier, more effortless acceleration, but at the same time might not sound as premium or might not feel as premium from the engine NVH side of things. So I think that's where I'm gonna leave it here with the Colorado. I'm gonna head back to the dealership. We're gonna exchange swap trucks really quick, drive the Frontier around the exact same loop, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts and impressions between each of these two. Fun fact, as we hop into the Frontier, Zach Pradle of Shooting Cars ate half a Domino's pizza inside of the interior of this truck. I mean, can you believe the audacity to do that? I've never eaten anything inside of my press cars. Anyways, setting out here from the dealership in the Frontier, immediately seat comfort, not great. Steering feel or steering power assist, much firmer, stiffer steering in general. Again, likely due to that hydraulic power steering versus the electronic in the Chevy Colorado. And visibility, I guess, is fairly similar between two trucks. Seats all the way down, I can see a good amount of the hood. Dash is about the same height, but the steering wheel for some reason seems a little bit higher or at a slightly different angle and just seems a little bit chunkier in general. Side mirrors definitely larger in this truck. Belt line definitely lower in this truck. You can actually see under the mirror a little bit more than that of the Colorado. So those are kind of my first initial impressions setting out. We'll go ahead and do acceleration. There we go. Naturally aspirated V6 takes a little bit of time to wind up and ultimately give you the full output of the engine. That's the big difference here. 8-speed versus 9-speed doesn't feel all that too different. I will say both transmissions are not my favorite, but the V6 is pretty smooth, has a deeper tone to it, sounds better inside the cabin than the 2.7 4-cylinder. It's just it doesn't have the exact same power as the 2.7 turbo 4-cylinder. So I think ultimately from an effortless standpoint, the V6 is a drawback, but from a NVH noise standpoint and smoothness is certainly going to be a positive. And reliability, that's going to be on you to decide. I don't want to steer you one way or the other, but some people say the turbo 4-cylinder is going to be less reliable. Some people might say it's going to be just as reliable as the V6. Ultimately, I can't tell you that. Do your own due diligence, you know, from past experience and whatnot, but ultimately I think both of them will be pretty darn reliable, as the 2.7 has been around since 2019 model year now in a few different iterations. Brake feel, both trucks feel pretty darn strong. Ride quality, going over the bumps back there, this truck feels pretty darn soft too. I would say they ride pretty comparably. Not a huge difference here. Interior wise, I like the new infotainment system here. Nice, large, bright, colorful display. As far as the gauge cluster display, I don't love that as much. I like its customization and configurability, but it's very dim, not a lot of color to it, and it's actually kind of hard to see certain icons with sunglasses on, the way it's integrated and the brightness available from that LCD. So kind of a different feel into here, because that's nice, bright, vivid, colorful. That display behind the steering wheel definitely is not. Over your shoulder visibility, not bad. Same thing over here, not bad. Both trucks kind of comparable there. Yeah, I get the sense of a more solid, rigid feeling in the Colorado than this one, but that might have somewhat to do with the wheelbase and maybe a little bit of additional flex going on from the platform, because it is, you know, over a foot longer. So do have to keep that in mind between this comparison. Dials and switchgear, not too bad in this truck. You got a mix of, I would say, cheaper feeling switchgear here on the window and the door panel side. You have some really nice switchgear here for the infotainment system and climate controls. I like all that, the audio multimedia. And then a mix here kind of on the steering wheel. Don't love the steering wheel, don't hate it necessarily. But accelerating here, putting my foot more into it. Transmission probably should have downshifted there and didn't. but it's a very smooth accelerating experience. It's kind of, it's one of those things that you go back to a naturally aspirated V6 after driving 4 cylinders all the time, and in some regards, it is a nicer experience. It's just not as peppy, not as powerful, and you got to wind the engine out versus just having all the torque available under, 3,000 or under 3,500 RPMs. So I will say it's not necessarily worse in some regards, it's just different. Now we will go ahead and test out the sound system here on this particular truck. I will say I do like the sound system here in the Nissan just a little bit better than that Bose system, but it doesn't appear to get quite as loud. But that dedicated subwoofer in the second row in the interior certainly makes the experience just a little bit more well-rounded, I think, from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, those are the big differences I kind of feel immediately behind the wheel of this particular truck. I think my pick, if I were to spend roughly $50,000, taking into account the roughly $3,000 price differential as the two trucks are equipped in this video, I would probably lean towards the Colorado. I think the biggest issue I have with the Frontier is ultimately going to be the seat comfort. I have spinal fusion. The majority of my back is fused. I do have issues from time to time with headrest and or seat comfort. And unfortunately, Nissan makes some really good zero-gravity seats in the Murano and Armada, but I have to say the Frontier has to be near the top as to one of my most or least comfortable vehicles I've been in recent times. I can usually name a couple really poor ones for the headrest, but this seat shape just doesn't fit my body well. So my recommendation would be, if you're at all interested in the Frontier, test drive one for an extended period of time, maybe an hour or two at least, and see if the seat is comfortable to you. To me, the seat bottoms feel a little bit more narrow than the Colorado. It feels like you're sitting on top of the side bolsters. The back is my biggest issue for comfort. It just does not ergonomically fit my back well. The headrest really isn't all that big of a deal, but the interior is a mix of, I would say, up-to-date technology, and older buttons and switchgear, which doesn't feel as cohesive, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. I think ultimately that's gonna be where I leave this comparison video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on these two midsize trucks down in the comment section below. Do you agree or disagree on my overall assessment and or anything else you want to add? Feel free to leave all that down below. This is going to be a very helpful video for anybody that is interested in comparing the Chevy Colorado and the Frontier to one another. I think there's some similarities between the two, but there's also a lot of big differences, namely the powertrain, the interiors, and the way the two trucks kind of drive and the feel you get behind the wheel. So leave any opinions or comments on that kind of stuff down in the comment section below. Which truck would you pick for, $50,000 or just under $50,000, and why? I want to give a huge thanks to Nissan once again for providing the Frontier, and Green Family Chevrolet in East Moline for providing the Colorado. And with all that being said, I appreciate continued support here on the channel and hope to see you guys in the next one.